all the private consultants.
Question number 2, Clayton Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Forestry and asked what reports has he received about the effects of the changes to the Overseas Investment Act 2005 on forestry and other regional land.
The Honourable Shane Jones.
Mr Speaker, I can do no better than to quote the Whanganui-based Director of Forest Owner Managers Services, bloody good news. These changes as they pertain, sir, to forest land, forest resource, simplify the application process, vastly reduce the costs associated with forest investors wandering through that process, and I'm told it'll be a boost to grow us at a greater pace to achieve the billion-tree outcome.
Great news. Supplementary, sir. Does the Minister consider these changes to be positive towards the billion trees strategy?
Mr Speaker, there are a limited range of sources of capital in terms of funding this nation-building project. There is core funding coming out of the Crown. There is funding coming out of entities such as the Super Fund in the event that they are so inclined. And then there is the source of international capital. Our government made a choice to simplify the process so we could tap into international capital subject to rules and regulations that will be covered off by environmental legislation. This is positive for the billion-tree strategy.
Supplementary. Are there specific concerns related to former Crown forestry land?
Yes, former Crown forestry land was given back, sir. I'm aware as the Minister of Forest to a range of Māori hapu and treaty settlement assets, and on one such block of land I have been lobbied by parties associated with that Crown forest land located in Mangawhai, Te Arai.
The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Could the Minister possibly help us all by telling us who was the concerned local citizen that contacted him and lobbied him on behalf of the local iwi and developers?
Mr Speaker, I did attend a meeting at the Taraiti Golf Course. That land was previously Crown forest land. Present at that meeting were members from the Te Uri o Hau Hapu, Mr John Darby, and the US billionaire, Mr Rick Kane. I'm disappointed that the latter's name has been traduced by the opposition in the House. I had never heard of the man's name until I was encouraged to meet him by the former Prime Minister, Right Honourable John Key.
Something question. Just amongst all those people that the Minister mentioned, so was it Sir John Key who was the local citizen that lobbied him?
Sir, after I received my warrant in October, I was the Minister of Forestry and quickly grew into be, as dubbed by Gerry Brownlee, the champion of the country. It was in that capacity and I quite enjoy the company of the former Prime Minister, which may reduce my prospects for career development given the nature of the current Prime Minister. But having said that, I took his call. I didn't think there was anything improper with meeting with those parties, one billionaire, and if it was good enough for him to encourage me to meet with them, listen to them about their concerns, that's what I'm paid to do. The other side of the House might find more information if they look closer to home.
The Honourable David Parker.
So let me get this straight.
Order. Question.
Is the Minister saying that after all of the spurious and defamatory accusations levelled against me and the government by the opposition, that the Right Honourable Sir John Key had been making representations on behalf of Te Rarai for help before I even knew about it?
A point of order.
A point of order. The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Yes, my point of order is simply this. Mr Parker is not asking a question he is asking for a clarification. Further, he's making an allegation in his point of order, in his question, and in actual fact, the only responsibility that the Regional Development Minister, Forestry Minister might have in this circumstances would be for his own actions, which would be his interactions with the Honourable David Parker that led to the extraordinary exclusion attempt in the recent Overseas Investment Act, a bill which is currently before a select committee. Who lobbied who is of no concern to anybody in this House. It's the actions.
Speaking for the point of order.
No, we'll let him finish first.
Well, what this House concerns itself with is potential for corrupt practice, and that is the essence of what is at stake here. This sort of question, this self-justifying sort of question, does not do anything to improve the integrity of this House.
Okay, before I very rarely correct the honourable member on technical matters, the bill is currently before the House. It's out of select committee. The right honourable Winston.
Speaking of the point of order, the first thing is that the member, when making his point of order, was in grave danger of impugning his own former leader with the language he used. But the reason why Mr. Parker is asking the question is because, like me and my colleagues, we are filled with so much incredulity as to the answer for it that's been given by the minister.
I think the question did start off with a question. I think it was something like, "Have I got it right?" or similar words, and a set of facts were put there. I think we were getting close to the end of it, and I don't want to cause disruption by having it all again. But if the member can just bring it to a conclusion very quickly.
Point of order. You made it very clear at the start of question time that the leader of the National Party could ask a question but not make a statement.
Yep.
And I hope that the same rule will be applied here, because I know that it's a matter of defence that we're self-defence we're seeing in this question, but it should simply be a question.
Yeah, and there was a very clear question: have I got it right? And then a set of facts. It wasn't the addition of a set of facts after a question had been completed, as the Leader of the Opposition did, and he did again, and I didn't pull him up on it.
Just concluding the question, sir, in effect, did the Right Honourable Sir John Key, former Leader of the National Party, make representations on behalf of TRO for help before I even knew about it?
Well, I think what we've got absolutely clear now is no area of responsibility, because this minister has no responsibility for when that member knew about it.
Speaker.
A point of order, the Honourable David.
Sir, I find that a very narrow ruling, given the aspersions that have been directed at me, sir. The minister has
order.
The minister has responsibility for forestry matters, including relating to the forestry land to which this relates. And I've asked him whether he received, have I got it right? Did he receive representations from the Right Honourable Sir John Key on that issue? And I, sir, suggest that's a question that's in order.
Well, the first part of the question certainly was in order, and the vast majority of the summary was in order. But the member asked the Honourable Shane Jones to make a judgment as to the timing of that member's knowledge. And it is my view that he does not have responsibility for that.
Could I just rephrase the final part of that then, sir?
No, you can ask a new question.
Sir, okay. Is the minister saying that after all the spurious and defamatory accusations levelled against me and the government by the opposition and their proxies, that the Right Honourable Sir John Key, National Party leader, had been making representations on behalf of TRO for help before the March the 6th?
Honourable Shane Jones.
Mr. Speaker, I conceive this to be a part of my job. When a former Prime Minister, who I've got quite a bit of time for, rightly or wrongly, encouraged me to make contact with a fine investor, in my view, Mr. Rick Kane, and associated parties, I had no qualms in doing that whatsoever. Now, sir, that meeting, to the best of my recollection, took place not long after the chief of that hapu, Te Uri o Hau, Mr Russell Kemp, died. And I cannot recollect when Mr Key first made contact to me, but it was after that I was made a minister, sir.
Can I just... I am going to ask the minister now to, and I know we can't insist on yes or no things. Was it before March the 6th? That was the question.
Mr Speaker, the contact with the former Prime Minister, Right Honourable John Key, most certainly took place prior to the 6th of March, and to the best of my ability, my memory, I met at the Taraiti Golf Course with the hapu, with the billionaire from America, and a fine man, and Mr Darby.
A point of order or supplementary question, the Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
To the Minister for Regional Development, did he at any Forestry, sorry. Did he at any time make representations to Cabinet colleagues about the potential for the exclusion of this property from the Overseas Investment Act?
Mr Speaker, the Te Uri o Hau land, if I could answer it, sir, in this fashion, the Te Uri o Hau land was land that was transferred by Doug Graham and the Jim Bolger regime. I heard very clearly the concerns of that hapu that this compensatory land was suffering a further penalty as our government moved to exercise Article 1 Treaty sovereign powers. That is without a doubt, and sir, I made my concerns about compensatory treaty land known to Mr Parker. That is not the only block of Māori land that people have referred to me that is caught up with our universal and blanket ban.
Metri. Was he aware at the time of his representations to Mr Parker that the iwi had already disposed of more than 75% of their interest in the originally settled land?
Speaker, I do not recall the Right Honourable John Key referring to me that information.
Question number 3, the Honourable Amy Adams.
My question is to the Associate